Thank you so much for joining us today at 517 Fitness, the YouTube channel dedicated to helping you lose weight and gain faith. And today I am stoked because this is a topic I know nothing about, and I'm so excited to learn about it. We have the great Andrea Claassen here, she is a personal trainer, yoga teacher, and then I'm going to try and say this word correctly. Ayurvedic coach?
Yeah.
Ayurvedic coach. Cool. So Andrea, tell us a little about yourself and what we're going to chat about today.
Yeah. So I've been in the training industry now for 11 years, but really like 17 because I started when I was 16, like giving my friends, workouts back when I was in high school. And so I've been around the industry for a while, and probably the last 5 years is when I started introducing yoga into my training. I went through a yoga certification, so like a 9-month program. And it was on a retreat in Costa Rica that actually inspired me to do my yoga teacher training. And it was there that I first learned about Ayurveda because the instructor had told me, she was like, "Oh, you're very pitta." And I was like, I don't know what pitta means. Like, what is this? And then she had talked, she's like, "Oh, it's Ayurveda." And so she just gave us a little smidgen of what it was. And so that intrigued me. So I figured, at yoga teacher training, we're going to learn more about this. And if anyone's ever been through yoga teacher training, even though I was in a 9-month program, it was like 1 week of the 9 months that we even talked about it. So I realized, okay, if I really want to study this, I have to really dive deep. And so now I'm in year 2 of a different program of Ayurveda. So I've certified by one teacher. Now I'm getting certified from another. And then there's kind of layers to Ayurveda. So I'm at the coach level, and then there's an Ayurvedic practitioner, and then you can become an Ayurvedic doctor after that. So they have 3 different levels, and that's kind of the layout of it. And so I'm on my way to become a practitioner. I don't know if I'll become a doctor ever. It's just more schooling. It's just more of that. But yeah, that's kind of the main route with it. And if you're wanting to know like what Ayurveda is, because most of your listeners might not also know what it is. So it's it means the science of life, or this like wisdom of life. And so with that, I think of it like actual science. So if you think of it like the Western science with, you have your umbrella of, you have physics, anatomy, you have, your biology. Then Ayurveda has that umbrella as well. But we have like dinacharya, which is like your daily rhythms or routines. You have self-care. You have the doshas. You just have different umbrellas underneath it. And again, just learning it now for probably I've been 5 years into it. Like I still probably know this much of like this much knowledge because it is just so vast. And that's kind of the introduction, I guess, to where I'll lead us. And then you can kind of let me know what questions you have for me about it from there.
Yeah, no, okay. So yeah, I'm taking notes as you were chatting. I was like, okay, what's this? What's this? What's this? Perfect. Okay. So yoga, most people have some sort of relationship or know what yoga is to some extent. I've taken yoga classes before, different types and whatnot. What is pitta? Yes. So you're taking yoga class. She mentions this to you. What is that? Because that's what got you down this path. What was that? What is that?
Yeah. So for that, those are doshas. So the doshas, it's kind of like the backbone, or I would say most people's entry point into what Ayurveda is. And so there's 3 doshas, and we each have a dosha, a primary dosha our body is made up of that, our body, our mind and body. Then we have a secondary dosha where, so like I'm primarily pitta, my secondary would be a vata. So but I still have kapha in me. So I still have all 3 of them in me, but you just have a main one. So I'll kind of describe them all to kind of get the feel for, even me just describing them, you're going to be like, oh, I relate most to this one. So like your vata dosha. Your vata dosha is your movement dosha. It's air. It's made up of like air ether. So think of it when you lose your keys, and you're like, oh, I thought I put them here, and you're kind of just airy. You're kind of spaced out. Or if you're like talking on your phone, you're like, I gotta go. And then you're like, where's my phone though? And your friend's like, you're on your phone. Like that's a vata trait. Like you just kind of had a lot of spaciness going on. Now vatas in body tend to be a slender build. So they tend to be a little bit more slender. And then They can be really good creatives. They can be very good at, coming up with the ideas, but they sometimes lack the focus to actually implement what they've created. So that's kind of the Vata characteristics. Pitta, and that's the middle one. And so that's kind of like your medium frame. You put on muscle fairly easily. This can be when you're out of balance. You can be really angry. You can be really judgmental, very harsh. You can be just very driven, so you get burned out because you push, push, push. So the Pittas tend to be very good at implementing, but they tend to not take care of themselves because they just push, push, push. And then the Kapha is the grounded energy. And so this is your, like, the people who just want to give them a hug because they're just so warm. Like, we've all met those people where they're like, they are so nice. Like, that's a very Kapha energy. And they can be, when out of balance, they don't want to move. Like, they just don't have any motivation. They just get stuck in the rut. Depression would tend to be a Kapha energy. So you just kind of just feel down in the dumps. And so those are kind of a brief explanation about each of them. And then I can go more in depth, or, what do you want to know more about them? Because there's so many different areas I can take.
Yeah, no. So this all originates from like an Eastern practice, like that's where this all comes from?
Yep. And so it originated over 5,000 years ago in India. And so they're kind of, again, time-wise, like, they're not sure, just because of the way that we tell time now, wasn't back then, but about since then. And then it's just kind of gotten, like, mothers and grandmothers passed down this wisdom, and then it's gotten now transcribed and taken into the Western world more recently. And I would say even probably in the last 10 years, is maybe when it really started taking off here.
And is there, because you're talking about kind of a sensitive, people's energy and whatnot, is it correlated with any type of religion, or like further on, but it's just kind of a
think it's like it's a science. So it's just like, okay. So same as like Western science, like, it's not, there's no, because I'm like trying to think if there's anything. There's no religion ties to it. It's just, it's just Eastern science. So instead of our Western, doctors, it's just the Eastern doctor side of things.
So, I mean, sometimes they kind of mix and match. So I didn't know if it, with yoga, there's some religious aspects to it and what.
That would also be false.
So somebody, myself, let's say I want to get involved. What's kind of the dip your toe into the pond first step of this? Is it trying to figure out which one of these three you are? Is it like, kind of, where do you start this journey?
So that would definitely be the first one, is, figuring out which dosha you are. So then from there, you can kind of really branch off. And so there's tons of quizzes. Like, I have one on my website as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was on your website and you've got a quiz. So that's a good, okay.
Yeah. Because I just had gotten asked by so many people, like, how do I know? And, they're like, I relate to different characteristics of each of them, which is super common. Because you might have said, oh, I get that way. But the ones that I just told you were when it's out of balance. So we have probably felt all of those when we feel out of balance at some point. And then the main thing, if you want to kind of work this into training even, or working it into your fitness routine, is really paying attention to that. So when you're like, if your clients are coming to you, or if you are feeling really just like unmotivated and you're just like, oh, I don't want to do anything, you have to say, okay, is it just because you just feel unmotivated, or you're just kind of down in the dumps? Or is it because you really are just so tired? You're just flat out exhausted. So that would be the two camps. And once you figured out that, then you can kind of frame your workout around it. So if you're feeling the unmotivated, that depressed, kapha, sad kind of energy, actually doing a hard workout, like a HIIT workout, a harder yoga class, any of those kaphas do really well with. Creative classes, because they really thrive in a group environment. So, like even partner training. So if you're used to training by yourself, you'd maybe want to partner, because you're going to hold yourself more accountable, because you do enjoy other people, and you more people pleaser, I guess, would be that kapha energy as well. The pittas, they love the competitive fire. So the pittas love like the Orange Theory classes. They love to partner train or group train so they can compete with other people. They might not tell them they're competing, but in their head, they're like, I'm going to be the first one done. And then the vatas, The vatas tend to be, if they're out of balance, they need to do they want to do those classes. They want to do those hard classes, but they actually should be going to a restorative or yin yoga class, going for a walk outside by themselves, meditating, like to ground themselves back down, because that vata energy, again, is out and about. And if they're like this, going to a hardcore class is going to make them even more out of balance. And so that's kind of the main ones when I look at people is, you know, like just yesterday, I modified a client's workout because she was like, I'm so tired. She just flew in, you know, got in at midnight. We worked out at 8:30 and she's like, but I don't think you're going to let me. I'm like, no. I'm like, I will of course let you do whatever you need. And you're exhausted. So we'll do yoga versus, you know, a HIIT workout today. So like those little things are ways that you can kind of play with your workouts and your fitness, you know, based on how you're feeling.
That makes sense. Okay. I noticed this when I was on your website, kind of exploring and kind of, so I wasn't completely blind going into things. There was some guidelines that you had, and I really enjoyed those about like early to bed, you know, early to rise, those types of things. Is that a you thing, or is that a overbranching kind of a thing? And if you could go through those guidelines, because I think that they're super practical and whatnot.
Yeah, those are definitely some Ayurvedic, I guess, components. And again, every teacher teaches it slightly. So the teacher I learned from last year about Ayurveda, like she used a lot of those, like, because that's just how our Western mind thinks. Like we like those guidelines. The teacher I'm learning.
Oh yeah, everybody loves this.
Yes, exactly. You're like, check, great. And the teacher this year I'm learning it from more of a feminine perspective. She does not like those. And so it's kind of interesting just to see, like, whoa, you know, last year she taught definitely from more Western masculine energy, and this year it's feminine. And so just learning how our brains wrap around this stuff is kind of fascinating. But I still am in that limbo of, I like the linear stuff I like to see. And so the early to bed, early to rise, one of the things with that is you want to go to bed by 10 p.m. ideally in Ayurveda. So not only are the doshas associated with in our bodies, they're also associated with the time of day and with a season. So you can go really in depth with that, but the time of day, the pitta energy. So remember that pitta is that fire. It's that we're going to get stuff done. That's between 10 and 2 a.m. and 10 and 2 p.m., a.m. to p.m. So those are the pitta hours. So if we stay up past 10, we've all done this before. We're like, I'm so tired. And then you end up staying up till like midnight and you're like, I'm ready to go again, you know, because our second wind kicked in. And so we don't want to do that because our most restful sleep is happening between that midnight and 2, and that's our best digestive period. So that's why tying it to another one would be eating an early, lighter dinner. So we want to make sure we've done eating by 2 hours before bedtime. So if we haven't digested our food, that's also when you're laying in bed and you're like, you know, you feel like maybe some acid reflux, or like you're just not done digesting food. And like my husband, I tell him all this all the time of like, you got to eat earlier, because he'll be like at midnight or 1 o'clock, all of a sudden he's like, ugh. I'm like, it's because you ate too close to bedtime and your body's digesting it because it knows this is strong digestive period. And so having that early, later dinner, typically in Ayurveda, they want to be done eating by 7 p.m. Like when I first heard that, because I grew up on a farm, and so we were used to eating at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And so for me to try to switch all of this back, you know, it was kind of a mindset shift. And so now me and my son eat usually between 5 and 5:30. And it's quite, once you kind of grasp it and you understand, okay, I actually do feel better, because by the time I go to bed, like I feel light, like everything is through and you're ready to go to sleep. And so that's something to kind of play with as well. And so usually if people are trying to get into those habits, I have them start by, say they go to bed at 11 and they want to start going to bed by 10, just take it back half an hour. And then do that for a week or two, and then take it back another half hour. And the same thing with the early, lighter dinners is slowly creeping back that time until you get to a time where you're like, okay, 6 o'clock seems really doable for me and my family. Another kind of troubleshoot, which I find is super common, is like, you know, moms who are like, I got to feed kids and husband and different schedules are going on. So what they say, so depending on how old your kids are, it's also going to be, you know, different times of life.
Yeah.
So like with that, you want to eat, maybe they like to eat, say you have kids that are older in high school, middle school, and they're in sports, and your spouse is getting home and it's 7 or 8, and that's what time they're eating, but you don't want to eat at that time anymore. You literally just make yourself like a cup of tea, and you can still sit at the table and enjoy them, but you've already eaten your dinner before them. And again, what people find out is they're like, oh, my family actually doesn't care if I'm eating with them. They just want me sitting there. They just want me present at the table. And, no one's really noticing, oh, mom's not eating. She just has her tea, and you tell them what you're doing. And then sometimes like older kids, if they're not in sports, they start being like, oh, let me try this out, if they're home at that time. So it's kind of an, experiment and figure out what works best for your family. But that's a really good starting point for the early, lighter dinners. And then getting to bed early, it's so key.
Yeah, no, I like that concept with the tea, especially because like everybody's on their own, schedule, it seems like with nowadays. And it is that I get home at 8 o'clock and my wife's already ate. And so like I'm trying to eat and those things. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense to just, it's better to be present than that. So I like that a lot. You mentioned on your site plant-based eating. Is that completely vegetarian concept, or that's just foundation of plant-based?
So that is a great question, because this is where it can get sticky. And again, depending on, because it originated, in India, some of their practices are going to be way different than we have here. So some of the practices they have were because there was no refrigeration. Cows in India are very sacred to them. And so like that's where the no meat thing would come in. But here, it depends on who you ask for, any with the Ayurveda. And basically what it comes down to, from most teachings, most people are going to tell you mostly plant-based, meaning, maybe you have one meal a day with meat, or maybe for some people, it might be just once or twice a week with meat. But plant-based, I actually have this checklist that I give to, one of my coaching programs that I have. And I love it because people are like, wow, I actually do not eat as diverse of plants as I thought I did. There's a lot of times we're like, oh yeah, I eat that, or I eat this. I have a ton of greens. And then you actually document it. You go through this chart and you're like, wow, I haven't even heard of half of these vegetables. And just to kind of realize how undiverse our diets might be. And so that's kind of what the plant-based, or mostly plant-based, means. And you can, again, everyone take it upon what works best for themselves. They rely heavily on dairy and ghee. I personally, that I can't digest it very well. Dairy just does not do well in my body. And so I can take those recipes and I flip them and make them with, coconut milk or almond milk. And so that's kind of the main thing, is to know your body. There was someone who did like raw vegetables. So if you're a Vatas tend to be the ones who might be more constipated and not digest foods properly. So with that being said, like salads are not great for them because raw foods don't digest very well. And so if you have any constipation or anything like that going on, you actually want to cook your vegetables versus, having more salad. So a lot of times we think, oh, salad's healthy, just keep eating them. But if we're not processing it, then it's just getting backed up in our system. And that's not helping us, because a lot of times when people are eating a ton of salads, unless they really love them, it's more for a weight loss thing, which at the end of the day, if it's not eliminating, you're not helping yourself out.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I never really thought about the cooking concept, the raw versus cooking. That, yeah, makes 1,000% sense. There was, you talked in this guideline thing, there was, 20 minutes of movement. That makes sense. Meditation makes sense. What is kitchen sadha? Sadaha. I whenever it's a different, when it's a name to, especially like an Eastern, I never know if it's the A's that or what. Like, yeah. So What is kitchen? And then you insert the word.
Kitchen sadhana. It is that is something that I've been playing with.
Yeah,
I know. It's basically cleaning out your kitchen. And so this is something they recommend to do on a quarterly or seasonal change. So with Ayurveda, the seasons are a big thing. And so switching with each season. So going through it, looking through your spices, there are certain spices to be had at different times of the year. And then, going through the cupboards and just noticing, oh, this is expired, or why do I have this? Because a lot of times, we don't do that. And then making sure we have our staples. And so like quinoa, having the ghee, having, coconut oil, whatever you're cooking with, olive oil, just having those staples around. That's pretty much what it is. It's kind of a fancy way to say like cleaning out your kitchen, going through what you have on hand, and then using that, or throwing stuff out if it's old, and spring cleaning. And so maybe moving the spices that are more wintry into the back and pulling out your spring spices. Because a lot of heat in the summer you don't want to do, because that's the pitta time of year, because the heat and that, the fire intensity, obviously with the summer, it's hotter. And so that's when that flares up that. So having a lot of those, spicy, the cayenne peppers, the turmeric is good year round. Turmeric is like the up here for Ayurveda, like that's their spice. So that would be one that's fine. But any of those, like the black pepper, like coriander and cumin, are pretty good for most part of the year. Those are also two well-known spices. Ginger, being careful with it in the summer, not maybe having too much. Lemon in your water is also another great thing to have to kind of alkalize the body, which I know that that's kind of becoming more, I guess, well-known, or I've heard it a lot more now, just in fitness stuff. And that also started there. And so like I have a tonic that I like to drink for right now is actually a perfect time to have it. So if you're coming down with a cold, maybe you do like a fourth of a lemon, some either fresh or some ginger, just like the spice, turmeric, either fresh or the spice, and you mix it into your cup with a little bit of honey, and then you mix that up and have that a few times a day. And that kind of helps with, preventative of the colds and of the flus. There's some other like fire cider that I made this year to help prevent with colds and flus, and knock on wood, I'm doing all right. Like I had made elderberry syrup for my son because the fire cider, if anyone has ever had it, is hot. So like my son is too. He is not going to be having that because it's got garlic, it's got jalapenos, it's got peppers, it's got apple cider vinegar, turmeric. I mean, it's just basically throw all of this stuff in a thing, and you take just a tablespoon or two.
that's you're going after it with that. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it works. I mean, every time I felt like something coming on, I took either 1 or 2 tablespoons, and because it dries it up, because it's that heat and that's that fire that breaks up. So again, like this is more in depth with the kapha. So kapha, which is what we're coming into this time of the year, is kapha time of year. And it's because this is like that stuff gets stuck in our chest and our throat starts to get scratchy. Anytime you have that up, that fire breaks up that stuff. And so then it kind of disperses. And so it brings movement through the body, which is associated with vata. So this is kind of in depth, but that's just kind of, if you kind of, you're like, okay, I can kind of see what she's talking about. She's got all 3 doshas.
No, that makes complete sense. I was following. I follow.
Okay. Okay. That's where I'm like, hopefully this isn't over your heads. Cause this is like, when you start to like see it, you're like, oh, it makes total sense. Like this is the pitta breaks up the kapha, and the vata is the movement. So it's moving it and dispersing it out through the body. So that's just how they all, as you can see, interplay at all times throughout the year.
No, that makes complete sense. Perfect. Well, I feel like I've got a pretty good base of what this all accumulates into. So if somebody wanted to really get into it, how would they go about getting in contact with you, and what kind of are the best steps and practices that they can start this with?
Yeah, so I have a podcast, Peaceful Power Podcast, on iTunes. And so that's one way to kind of, this is actually, February is my Ayurvedic themed month. And so this is a great time to like deep dive into it. And then on my website, AndreaClaassen.com, and that has if you want to know your dosha, it's right on the homepage to take that quiz. And then the end of the month is actually, I'm opening up a 4-month Ayurvedic course, and it's called Divine Body Wisdom. And so that's where I'm really going to get into kind of the nitty gritty. So like we just kind of tapped the surface of some of it. And then it's really, at the end of the day, it's really about, teaching you that you are your best teacher. And so once you kind of have those tools into place and you understand the doshas and how they work, you can really understand, why I felt like I needed fire cider the other day, and that way you, instead of someone being like, because a lot of times I think what happens is our life gets busy and all of a sudden we're like, how did I get sick? Instead of just slowing down and saying, oh, I feel my throat's getting a little scratchy. What can I do? Let me take some of this. And kind of that inner wisdom that we have, but I think we've lost just because of that's the way our society has moved, it's fast paced. So that's kind of what I aim to teach in that course.
Beautiful. And so like, who would be the perfect candidate's kind of like a not nice way to say it, but like who would be the perfect to take that course from you? Like what are they trying to achieve? What's the end goal? Is it weight loss? Is it just better health? Is it purpose? What's kind of the best practice of that?
So weight loss was, so I did this course actually last fall as a beta group, and I tested it with some people, and weight loss was, like, I called it a side effect, you know, and that happens, and we don't focus necessarily on that, but it happens because all of a sudden you're slowing down and paying attention to those habits. And so it's really with someone maybe who's tried different diets and tried different workout plans and nothing has worked for them. So a lot of times it's really coming back and we having us, you know, knowing that this wisdom is inside of us and teaching us how to actually be confident again. So it's maybe those persons who've lost their way, you know, along the road of health and wellness, and they're looking to understand, like, how can I be a better ally for myself? And that's really someone who is ideal for this course.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for explaining all of this and getting the word out. I'm excited. That's cool. And all links will be in the description to this video so people can easily find their connection to you. So thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us today. Is there anything else that, you know, we should know or you want to plug real fast?
Gosh, I don't think so. Yeah, just my website's got lots of free guides and stuff. So if you're looking, like, there's different areas that if you want to explore, I have that. But it's been great. So thank you so much, Tyler, for having me on.
Thank you so much. And yeah, so the link to your website will be in the description down below. So thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching this video. And like always, God bless, finish strong, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.